In a sense, in a sense, yeah, it's the closer we are to this illusion of physicality, we get this density that things in a box, which means where the colors in a box. We tend to focus on the color rather than the fact that the essence of what's flowing is the same. It's only our perception that gives it the different colors. And we tend to look at colors. I got red, red, red. You got purple, but my red is better than purple. You know what I'm saying? We tend to get selfish about that. Look at colors, perception, instead of the essence of what goes through the two.
Or even thinking scientifically, if your emotion determines the color of the aura, you won't look at it from that perspective. So I think that is a good use of what you're talking about. What you're talking about. But I'm based upon what you said, that suppose that Adam, put in a state of unconsciousness, not so much the making of the giving of the partnership, not so much what the thinking is, as it was to remain in the being of his spiritual image. Suppose that was one possibility. And it had to work its way back to it. So
you say it created space between being and knowing spiritual image and that was what I got from the same creating
because I'm saying that you being a nurse, in order for you to create a nurse, and the mere fact of you bringing an entity into being or to existence doesn't make it a nurse. You would have to do the things that a nurse does in order to be a nurse. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, this entity Adam was brought into being in the image and likeness of Elohim. It has the same traits. So it does not become Elohim. It does not become a nurse until it begins to utilize those traits as the nurse utilizes them or as Elohim does. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, that being the case, then suppose that this thing that we call the physical world are actually the materials necessary for creation on our part. These are the stuff, this is the substance that's needed for creation on our part. And an understanding of this tree of life is a transformation from a quest for the physical accoutrements of this world to the spiritual reality of our control our attitude towards what life is. Because when we talk about living a good life, we're talking about things as opposed to attitude. So without the possibility of a distraction, would there be a true realization of being that creative entity to bring into existence the energy, the life that humanity
Did we lose him?
Yeah, I'm going to try to call them on my phone and connect if I can remember exactly how to do that. Okay.
I got it. I'm calling him just a second.
Oh, okay.
Followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound. You to the NTT's conferencing service. Enter your phone. After the tone, please say your name, followed by pound. Your call has been placed.
us becoming more acquainted with our spiritual nature. But if you look at the scriptures, it says that Jesus was a higher form or a superior Adam or a different type of Adam. It didn't say Elohim. So suppose that's what Jesus was doing. He came to show us how to take the substance in this earth realm attitudes and mold them into Elohim, being who we were created to be, that is Elohim, loving kindness, forgiveness, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And more than that, this is something that our, the faith teachers and the faith group has been pressing and trying to achieve. But it's only when we understood that we are doing it on behalf of mankind, that now mankind has that opportunity too. This pandemic occurred so that it could literally cut people off from certain things that are major distractions. And while everyone will not take advantage of understanding and going inside oneself, in a sense, as a matter of speaking, to understand oneself spiritually, a lot of people have. And it's made a difference in terms of what you see. There are people who have money who are sharing that now, whereas before they wouldn't have thought of doing that. And there are some who have money who made a decision that, hey, this is not what I'm going to do, and I'm going to just try to get more. But the extremes of what mankind sees now, the extreme chaos versus the extreme kindness, instances of kindness, that's what people are seeing. And it's like what you said about the atom, the sleep created opportunity for it to, the space that's separated for it to not remember as much of the spiritual thing that it was. But that's the creative thing that Elohim has given us. That's our way to create. There's that space that's been created. And whereas it created space so that physicality could come in existence in terms of our perception that it is, that it's given us the opportunity to create that space where mankind can understand its place as a spiritual entity. And not just our small group, but it's like it's opened it up, the opportunity, not necessarily that everybody will take advantage, but the opportunity in the macro that everybody can grasp that concept that I'm more than what I thought it was. But I don't need, I'm sorry, that's my phone. I don't need to be in the midst of a lot of people to feel like I'm not alone. That I can be by myself and know that I'm not alone. I don't know if that resonates or not.
It does, because I think 20 years ago maybe, when Kathy was doing a conference, she researched that word alone and found that there was no Hebrew word for loneliness, because there is no such thing as that when we are, of course, at that time, we didn't have this depth of understanding. But yes, it does indeed resonate. I want to share this. I wasn't going to do it, but for the last 3 nights, I've been having a recurring dream, but a sequential dream. Recurring in that it's the same, it references the same thing, but sequential in that it started at one place and progressed to another. The first night was Thursday night, or was it? No, it was Wednesday night, and I saw this country. It was like a bird's eye view of it. And if you can imagine a cake in the shape of this country sitting on the cake plate, that's shaped exactly like it is, and the cake is sliding off, and you're trying to push it back onto the plate without damaging it. That's what I saw. And pushing this country falling apart and trying to hold it together, pushing it back to where it was. And the next night, it was a sense of my seeing it, not just this country, but everything in terms of the world, and soliciting other people to help, but to no avail. But last night was different. I kept having these visions, not of seeing light, but of an explanation of light and life and energy, what it is. And one of the recurring things to me was that life is actually dormant energy. And there is no difference between life and energy itself. And I actually was shown how to use this light, this energy, for the benefit of humanity. However, I can't explain it now. And in seeing that, in experiencing that, all of these questions began to come to me. And the conclusion was, this is how you save the world. And I started asking, the question that came to me were, what is energy? What is dark energy? The difference between dark and light energy. And none of those questions have answers. Even though, of course, physics tells us that energy is a property that is transferred to an object for work or to heat. That's not a definition. That's talking about what it does. So, as a result of that, I began to write. And the thing that stuck out to me more than anything else is the reason things deteriorate is not only because they're built to be temporal, but it's because the life is taken away from them. The reason a house deteriorates if you don't live in it, not only because you are not there, but everything in that house has been separated from its life source. Even, for example, the wood in the house has been separated from its life source, which is a tree. However, if you're in that house, you are the life source for everything that's in it, which means that it's not your body that does it, it's your energy that keeps it alive, which says to me that it speaks to the idea of being Elohim, because things are drawing life from you, or from it. And the you is not the body from which it draws the life, it's the energy that it draws from, because you can experience a lack of energy or a misdirection of it simply by being in the presence of someone or outside of the presence of anyone. The energy flow is different, so the life source is different. And I was shown how it is impossible to see objects with our eye. We only see experiences with our eye and objects with our eyes, and that is the reason our eyes are the source of our distractions for the purpose of pushing us to desire the experience of the eye. And this whole concept of ritual and religion are disconnected or are separate from the source of life, and that's the reason it is such a struggle to keep it afloat. And the decimation of the leadership and the perpetuators of this lack of light and life is actually not coming to an end as much as being exposed. That's why the church has to always have something else to do, because there is no life in it. So it has to give your eyes something to see, because it can't give your soul anything to experience. However, if indeed it is life-giving, then the soul has the experiences, and it doesn't need to see the objects of that religion in terms of the calisthenics that takes place in with the singing and with the with the raising of the hands and all the other ritualistic calisthenics that are experienced in those settings. And now we are at the, not the fork in the road, as much as we are at the place where we are being shown the true nature of what life is, and a deeper, a greater understanding of the difference between what we thought the tree of life is and what we thought the tree of knowledge of good and evil are. We are being shown that these concepts are concepts that we can now articulate. We've known that they are concepts, yet a clearer understanding of them was elusive. And now it isn't. It's like the robe is being taken off, and a revelation of what life is being shown. A knowledge of energy, an experience of energy is the tree of life, an energy that's beneficial, an energy that you can look at and say is beneficial to humanity. And the robe is being taken off of this knowledge of good and evil, ripe and unripeness, so that we can see that the type of thing that we talk about, I love you with the love of God, is unripeness, as opposed to simply loving, period. And this missionary thing is about selfish attitudes seeking to bring others into a religious venture as opposed to a place of deliverance. So the whole concept of the mission, a missionary, is in itself unripened, but the ripeness of it is to bring, it is about deliverance and righteousness as opposed to congregating in places together to perpetuate a denominational belief that has no life in it. Neither does it have any hope in it. So what I'm seeing is more of a sense of understanding that even though life is daunting in terms of articulating it, it is no longer elusive, because we are beginning to see that Adam was purposely shown what could be in terms of the physical world, so that it could bring it into existence for the purpose of bringing this new earth into existence, and this idea of a new heaven and a new earth. The new heaven is not a new revelation of light. It is a revelation of light that Adam never had, that mankind never had or never embraced. And with this comes a new consciousness in the earth as a result of the enlightenment that has been embraced by humanity. And this in itself speaks to the tree of life, which is referenced as the New Jerusalem, which is a fresh sense of righteousness that is cultivated by love and kindness, built upon a foundation of love, with, in the midst of it, of this righteousness, is a type of healing that supersedes anger and supersedes a desire for revenge or to get even. A type of healing that lends itself to bringing about harmony with the ones who have been not only deceptive but have also been diabolical in the way that they have dealt with humanity. Without even thinking about whether or not it should be done, it is done. This type of healing. I connect the tree in the midst of this righteousness to the tree of knowledge, good and evil, and the tree of life. All of those are interrelated because they speak to more of an experience than they speak to something that can be audibly articulated. Please mute your phone. What is the noise in the background? Everyone, please mute your phone. If you're trolling, that's fine. We can speak to you too. So, what I'm seeing is that we are at a crucial point. And that crucial point where we are is experience of the completion of creation itself. And the completion of creation itself is not in our hands, it's not in the hands of the initial creator, but it's in our hands to embrace it. Because even though you want me to be a nurse, if I don't embrace it, I never will be one. However, if I embrace it, then that can become my reality. So when we embrace this creation in the same manner that we have been in the same manner that our Creator presented it to us, it is then that creation becomes complete. It does not mean that there's going to be an absence of anger. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that at all. If that were the case, then that would not be a tree of healing. The healing brings about opportunity for those attitudes that are adverse to harmony to be brought into a place of harmony with everyone else. That is the reason the scripture talks about love being able to cover a multitude of entanglements or sin. And the multitude of entanglements speak to the concept or the idea of, without regard to how many entanglements or how different they may be, love is strong enough to embrace them and to bring such a healing to them until they become a part of this foundation of love within themselves so that this false sense of separation, of division, is no longer a factor that results in humanity being relegated to remaining a human and never becoming what it was destined to become. Does all that make sense? Are there any questions or comments?
This is Barbara, just a comment. When you said that we embrace creation, when at the point when we embrace creation in the same manner that the Creator presented it to us, it made me think about that Hebrew something that one of the saviors said, that as much as the calf wants to suckle, the cow wants to be sucked. In other words, the balance is that what's provided for me is exactly what I need if I embrace that and receive it.
Yes. And the Creator, we must have the same desire to embrace the creation that's been presented to us as the Creator has for us to embrace it. And that in itself is that uninterrupted relationship, the uninterrupted attitude, the uninterrupted thought pattern that keeps us in a place of harmony. It doesn't mean that things will not flow through your mind that are contrary to who we are or created to be. It doesn't mean it won't flow through your mind. Even though it flows through your mind because your soul transforms it. It doesn't expel it, it transforms it. And the transformation of that energy of thought that flows through the mind flows through others with the same thought, with transformation taking place. Therefore, we are in a place to bring redemption to humanity right now by virtue of not being uncomfortable with embracing essence of our creation, even though we may not know the purpose of it. Any questions? Comments? Come on. Okay.
So,
go ahead.
So, this Father, when we say then that the tree is in the seed kind of concept, what you just described was the tree being in the seed. And what you described when you talked about the atom that was put to sleep, so that it could purposely be shown, the physical world to bring into existence the new heaven and the new earth, that new consciousness. The new consciousness is the seed of what Adam came from. The essence of sharing with everybody. The essence of not being selfish. the essence of wanting to do the right thing for everybody because it's the right thing to do, and not seeing myself as separate from anybody else, that we are all one. That's the seed, because from one came many. And when you understand that we, the many, are one, you're simply different reflections of that same oneness that is the Creator. When you understand that, then that's how we understand that all that we can be as the seed, as we grow spiritually, we can be all that we can be based on the destiny of how the Creator and what the Creator created us to be.
Not only that, we don't have a choice except to be what we were created to be if we embrace that. What am I saying? The acorn cannot desire to result in being a pine tree. It has to be an oak. It embraces being an oak, and that's all it would be. And it cannot look at itself and call itself a pine tree. It's an oak. And if it calls itself a pine tree, then it becomes as a pine tree is, and that is with shallow roots. Not able to withstand storms as would an oak. So when we embrace that, we cease to seek to be a pine tree and embrace the reality of being an oak tree. Any questions?
This is Audrey. I have a comment.
Okay.
When you talked about embracing what we are, even though we don't fully know what that means. Yeah, I can see the metaphor of the seed, because the seed doesn't know what it is to become, but it knows it has the experience of the tree within it. And I think when we embrace the experience of knowing who we are in the Creator, then it's the Creator who's going to provide as us as the seed. It's the Creator who's going to provide the water and the sunlight and the whatever other nutrients we need. But if we embraced being the seed, and the Creator provides what we need to be nourished, then we develop, and we have no choice but to develop into what it is that we were created to be, if we embrace the experience and the idea of who we are from the beginning, I think.
I agree. That makes all the sense in the world. Anyone else?
Yeah, tangentially speaking, with all that was said today, I started off very early thinking about when you mentioned lightness and darkness, and to think that when you and Ms. Bob were talking about it earlier today, there actually is no real difference between the two, and they're actually one and the same. in that all of it is, as you would think, reflection, of light bouncing back to us. However, the darkness or the blackness is only a culmination of all the different colors that that perceives to be black, but in their essence is all actually light, but just perceived in different ways and unable to exist without the other. I said it's not two separate things; they are the same. And not trying to sound metaphorical, but just to accentuate the point that it's still the same exact essence. And even in the way that the same way, because light is a type of energy that is just seen from a material standpoint, but it means the same thing from a spiritual standpoint. Sound does the same exact thing. When we think about a sound, you have a combination of different notes that make up a song, a tune, or whatever, even the way that we speak in communicating to one another. But just as important as each single note is also every single pause. And because of that, it would be impossible to even have one continuous sound because it is actually changing. And even further, sound itself, which is energy, which is a wave, never ceases to exist at all. It only gets to the point that we no longer can detect it for whatever reason. Example being, as we get older, how our eardrums work, we're unable to detect certain frequencies that a baby could detect, but then maybe a teenager couldn't detect. And then that teenager can, of course, detect and hear sounds that a full-grown adult can't hear. But the sound always exists. And even I say that because, well, I say that to make the point that even in that perceived pause, there's still sound. It's just not detected. And I say all of that to, once again, make the point that the sense of separation does not exist at all.
That makes sense. Any questions about that?
I don't have any questions about it, but I can concur with Sheldon in terms of me seeing it in a different way. On some occasions, I have the opportunity to, work at night, and sometimes when I meditate, I have the opportunity to see in darkness, total darkness, turn into light. However, it's all still the same shades of color, just going through different transformations. But to be able to see it is in that same exact way, where you can see it transferring from light to day, but it's from night to day, but you see it in terms of the same energy or the same power. So I just wanted to share that thought in terms of me actually visualizing that and meditating on it.
Thank you, George. I really appreciate that. It was almost one of the most important parts that I left out that I was thinking about earlier as well as everyone was speaking. That darkness that we talk about, same as that pause, actually allows for more creativity, more options, whatever you might want to call it, for something in a sense to be created. In terms of dreaming, typically when you meditate, pray, or whatever, even when you're trying to focus and you're trying to, in a sense, change the reality that you experience or that's in front of you, or even if you're trying to even imagine something differently, typically when you are in darkness, it aids in that pursuit. Then there is, so it's as if in the midst of the darkness, as well as in the midst of the pause where there is no sound, so to speak, there are an infinite number of possibilities. I think someone on the phone may have incidentally unmuted your phone. Can everyone please mute their phone?
Okay. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
You talked earlier about being born again, and my question is, are we always being born? Is it a continual process that we're constantly being born, reborn or whatever, rebirth or whatever?
Ask yourself a question. When we talk about being born, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our birth, there are elements that take place prior to. There is the need to constitute a body in a womb before there can be this spirit placed in that body. So when we start talking about being reborn, the question becomes, are we talking about being reborn through the process of reconstituting a body? No. We're talking about through the process of the reconstitution of a cell or reconstitution of a brain. The scripture says that he proved in the nostrils and became a living soul. So what is that? When we look at Genesis 1 and 23, we see the constitution and the birth of a spiritual being. If we look at Genesis 2, around, I think it's 27, we see the fashioning of a being from the dust of the earth. And it is my contention that this is the pictorial that the being was given. A physical entity being fashioned in a spiritual way. This is what I'm saying. If you close your eyes and you can see yourself put your key on the key ring or put your key in the ignition, the key is not in the ignition physically, but it is there in your mind. Because suppose this fashioning from the dust was a physical entity being shown in the mind of the Adam/Elohim at the same time. And this pictorial of that in the mind was the world that was going to become a reality based upon the entity called Adam bringing the physical world into existence. In that regard, we have opportunity to be reclaimed or to be reconstituted on a continuous basis, yes. Any questions about that?
In the mind of the Creator, as a particular entity, or if we're in the mind of the Creator, we can, I don't know how to put this. we can fashion ourselves as something different because we are part of the Creator?
No, I'm not talking about us fashioning ourselves at all. I'm talking about being fashioned. We have opportunity to be what we were created to be, not to refashion. That's the problem. We have done that. We have refashioned ourselves. Now, I'm not talking about bodily, physically. I'm talking about spiritually. We have made ourselves Baptists and Methodists. We have made ourselves Jews and Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we have refashioned ourselves, and that has in itself become the problem.
Well, I guess I was thinking of going the other way, not toward the Muslim or the Christian or the whatever. I'm going the other way.
No, we can't refashion ourselves into what we already being fashioned into.
Okay.
It's like, you know, we can't take a bicycle and make it a car.
Well, isn't that refashioning? I mean, but you're making it into something else.
No.
Okay.
She's talking about refashioning into something it wasn't in the beginning.
Okay.
You can't do that. We can pretend all we want. It's like the oak tree trying to pretend it's a pine tree. We live the lives of physical beings, and the idea of being spiritual is secondary. The whole concept of spirituality is not even brought into major thought or question unless someone dies or is on the brink of death. Then we start talking about it. However, in our daily lives, we are more consumed with what we see as opposed to who we are.
So the things that we used to hear in church where people say, the things I used to do, I don't do anymore. The things I used to think, say, act.
Yeah.
Does that pertain to what you're saying now?
No, it does and it doesn't. It does in that all that is stuff of guilt as opposed to reality. And it doesn't in that we were never designed to be caught up in those things anyway. Like, the whole idea of what is it that you don't do anymore? And my whole thing with that has always been, since I've been pastoring, is this. The only reason you don't, because you're too old. You can't do it no more. Or you never wanted to do it in the first place. Why? Because those concepts about church and religion, people deal with those when it does not apply to them. The things that apply to them, they don't talk about. So that's out the window anyway. I'm talking about the spiritual things. I'm sorry, the spiritual entity that we were created to be, the spiritual attitude, personality that we have, the essence of our Creator that we are. This is what I'm talking about. These are the lifelines that we have been given in order for us to be fashioned into the likeness that we were created in. And that fashioning comes by virtue of how we relate to humanity itself, rising above the distraction of the physical world and being more in tune with the spiritual world. That is what Jesus meant when he talked about being in this world but not of it. I'm in this world of distractions, but I'm not distracted by it. It does not consume me.
Well, I wasn't talking about the religious part, but my main focus was talking about the spiritual aspect of it, because again, with the religious part, I'm not even interested in that. I was just talking about the spiritual part.
The church doesn't talk about the spiritual part.
I know, but that was for me, as far as the things, the way, my way of thinking, my mindset is totally different now. It's not the religious aspect.
I got you. Your mindset is different now. Why? Because you have been purged.
Well, that's where I was kind of going too. We can refashion ourselves in a sense that once we actually realize who and what we are, then we start to move more into that as as opposed to moving toward religion and whatever.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
So I see what you're saying, and I guess I'm saying that it's not a refashioning as is as much as a recognition of, or becoming aware of and accepting it.
True, I agree with that.
And it's like simply just being it. It's
Right.
being it. It's not trying to shape it or just be. Once you're aware of it, just be it.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Any other question? Comment?
I have a comment, but it's not exactly, it's related to something you wrote, but not necessarily something that we've already talked about. You mentioned a part, and I think it was the first part that you sent in regards to what the creator was not, or how you, something like how you could not be the creator, or what was not exemplary of being the creator, or Elohim, in terms of trying to, or being concerned with possessing certain things. And when reading that part, I was automatically thinking how the idea of mindset that you are possessing something in itself runs completely contrary and takes you out of the mindset and even acting of being being a creator, because now all of a sudden, that's how to explain it. So the idea of the creator, or what the creator actually means, is to understand that you are part of everything and that you're at the same time creating everything as well, as you actually mentioned, or as we've talked about many times on here. However, to actually try to only hold on to or look at trying to possess something, or that you have to possess something, is to automatically, in effect, ignore all the other aspects of being a creator, because to be a creator, it would not be trying to possess something that you already are a part of. It's almost cutting yourself off. It's almost the same thing as you being or existing, or for how we exist in the world, and we say we own this piece of land, or we own this piece of property. Well, if we identify with only owning this piece of land or owning this piece of property, we then say that the rest of the world is not ours to actually enjoy, because we don't own that particular thing. So to try to only possess some little small or defined thing is to automatically ignore your connection to all of the rest. Those two ideas cannot be held together at the same time. If there are any questions, I can elaborate, but I'm trying to figure out exactly how to put this in words.
The idea of possession. The idea of possession is far into Eastern thought, especially in terms of land, property, because no one owns anything. The land belongs to everyone. This concept of deeds to property only came into existence with the introduction of Europeans to the earth. So when we talk about possessions, that in itself is different, or that are adverse to our embracing who we are. Because like you said, when you know who you are, you understand that everything is you and you're everything. So why would you own 20 acres of land and you go only use 1 acre and someone else needs it in order to raise food or to live, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and also to go further, it is even if you want to look at it from a religious standpoint, it is which most of us came from. Even from that aspect, is an insult to your Creator to say that your Creator is not going to provide all these other things that that you need. A baby or a child does not think in the manner of, I must store all of the food that my mother gave me so that I can have some more food for later. It's just simply provided. And from an Eastern standpoint, traditionally that's more so how people existed, and in indigenous environments as well, that what they need was always there and available. Even when they needed it, it was just a matter of going to get it, but not having to possess it to take it into the future.
Right. Anyone else? Questions or comments? No questions, no comments?
Hi, this is Janice. Just one comment. I just wanted to note that like our discussions have been very encouraging. And when I see the chaos in the world, you know, or end up scrolling through the news, I'm comforted by the fact that on Saturdays we put it all into context. And not just put it into context, but we shape it into something positive. And it doesn't matter what happens or what it looks like. We've got it. That's all.
Okay. I can still think. I know it helps me get through the week.
But I wonder if that's not that's not what our purpose is. So we are fulfilling the purpose when we do that, Jamia,
Okay.
Agreed.
for each other and the world.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Okay, if not, I thank you for your time. And remain encouraged and know that we're not in this thing alone, because we are one. So have a great weekend, and we will talk later.
Okay. Perfect.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Have a great